Welcome to the Nameless.
The video showed my backyard, the same uneven grass and rusted fire pit I'd looked at 1,000 times. The camera shook slightly, like it was being held in one hand. At first, I thought it was just someone standing at the tree line. Then the camera tilted up, and I saw my kitchen window. My light was on, and reflected in the glass was the outline of someone holding the camera, standing inside my house. I remember staring at my laptop screen and waiting for my brain to catch up, like it was buffering. I paused the video and leaned closer, expecting the reflection to disappear if I changed the angle. It didn't. The shape was still there, tall, close enough to the window that the lens caught the glare from the overhead light. I closed the laptop and didn't open it again for almost an hour. I'd been living in that house for a little over a year when all of this happened. It was a small rental on the edge of a quiet neighborhood in upstate New York. Nothing special. 1 floor, unfinished basement, woods starting about 30 yards behind the backyard fence. I worked from home doing freelance design work, so I spent a lot of time there, probably more than I should have. It was cheap, isolated, and quiet, which was exactly what I wanted after a rough breakup and a string of bad apartments. The landlord lived out of state, and the house had been empty for a while before I moved in. A few of the neighbors mentioned that it had gone through tenants pretty quickly, but nobody ever said why. I didn't push. The place felt normal enough. Old, sure. Floors creaked, pipes knocked in the walls at night, but nothing that felt wrong. At least not at first. Most of my days followed the same routine. I woke up late, made coffee, worked at the small desk by the kitchen window, and took breaks by walking around the backyard. There was a narrow path worn into the grass that led toward the trees, probably from previous tenants or kids cutting through. I never followed it far. The woods were thick and quiet in a way that felt heavy, like sound didn't travel right in there. The first strange thing I noticed was the trash. One morning I went out back with a bag and found my bin tipped over. That wasn't unusual on its own. Raccoons were common. But the trash wasn't scattered. It was piled neatly on the ground, like someone had emptied the bin and stacked it. Boxes flattened, bags opened but not torn. It looked sorted. I remember standing there with the bag still in my hand, trying to picture an animal doing that. I ended up shrugging it off and cleaning it up. That was kind of my approach to everything back then. If I couldn't explain it right away, I'd tell myself there was probably a normal reason and move on. A few nights later, I heard something outside while I was in bed. It sounded like footsteps on dry leaves, slow, careful. I froze and listened, counting the seconds between sounds. They stopped after maybe half a minute. I told myself it was a deer or a neighbor's dog. I didn't look out the window. After that, it became a pattern. Little things. The back gate unlatched when I knew I'd closed it. The motion light coming on at odd hours, staying lit longer than usual. Once, I found a muddy footprint on the concrete step outside the back door. Just one. Too clear to ignore, but not dramatic enough to panic over. I started locking everything more carefully. Windows, doors, even the basement hatch I never used. I slept lighter. Any noise pulled me out of dreams immediately. Still, nothing ever happened while I was awake. It was like whatever it was knew when I was paying attention. The footage came into my life completely by accident. I was cleaning out an old email account one afternoon when I noticed a message I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a file attachment and a sender name made up of random letters. I almost deleted it without opening it, assuming it was spam. What stopped me was the file name. It was my street name, followed by a date from 2 weeks earlier. I downloaded it and opened it on my laptop. The video quality was grainy, like it had been shot on an old phone or cheap camera. It started with darkness and muffled sound. Then a door creaked open. I recognized the sound immediately. It was my back door. The camera moved forward slowly, light spilling in from somewhere behind it. I could hear breathing, steady and close to the microphone. The video passed through my kitchen, panned briefly over my living room, then stopped at the kitchen window. That was when it showed my backyard. In the video, the yard looked exactly the same as it had the night it was filmed. The same lawn chair knocked on its side, the same half-burned logs in the pit. My motion light flicked on, washing the yard in white light. And then the camera tilted just enough to catch the reflection. Someone was standing behind the camera. The video only lasted a minute. It ended abruptly, like the recording had been stopped mid-breath. I watched it 3 times in a row, trying to spot something that proved it wasn't real, some sign it was staged, a prank. But the details were too specific. The scratch on the counter I'd made while moving in, the calendar on the fridge with my handwriting on it, the faint hum of my refrigerator. I checked the file properties. The date and time matched a night I'd been home. I remembered that night too. I'd stayed up late working, then fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on. I never heard anything. My first instinct was to call the police. I even picked up my phone and dialed the non-emergency number. But what would I say? That someone sent me a video? That I couldn't prove who filmed it or how they got inside? I imagined the questions, the looks. I hung up before it rang. Instead, I emailed the address back. I kept it simple. I asked who they were and how they got the footage. I never got a response. Over the next week, things escalated. I started noticing my things moved slightly. A chair pulled out a few inches. The bathroom mirror angled differently. Once, I found my laptop closed when I was sure I'd left it open. I began taking pictures before bed, just quick shots on my phone of rooms and objects. In the morning, I compared them. Most of the time, everything matched. Sometimes it didn't. I installed a cheap security camera facing the backyard and another covering the kitchen. I told myself it was for peace of mind. The first few nights, they picked up nothing but bugs and branches moving in the wind. I started to relax, just a little. Then one morning, I checked the footage and found a gap. The camera logs showed it had stopped recording for almost 2 hours in the middle of the night. No error message, no power loss. It just stopped. When it resumed, the timestamp jumped ahead. That night, I dreamed someone was standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't see their face, only the outline of a head and shoulders blocking the doorway light. I woke up with my heart racing and the certainty that the dream hadn't come from nowhere. The next video arrived 2 days later. Same email format, same random sender name. This time, the file name was just Behind. The footage was shot from deeper in the woods. The camera moved through the trees, branches brushing against the lens. I recognized the path worn into the grass, the one I never followed. The breathing was louder this time, excited almost. The camera stopped at the edge of my yard. It zoomed in on the back of my house, on my bedroom window. The light inside flicked off. The video ended. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light on, listening to the house settle and creak. Around 3 a.m., the motion light came on and stayed on. I didn't look. The next morning, I packed a bag and drove to my sister's place 2 towns over. I showed her the videos. She didn't say much while she watched them. When the second one ended, she closed the laptop and told me I could stay as long as I needed. We went back to the house together later that week, in the middle of the day. Sunlight made everything look smaller, less threatening. We walked the property line and into the woods a short distance. About 50 feet in, we found something that made my stomach drop. There was a small clearing with trampled leaves and flattened grass. In the center was a pile of things: empty food wrappers, a crushed water bottle, and a notebook. The notebook was damp and warped, but some of the pages were still legible. They were filled with dates and short notes. Times when lights turned on and off, when I left the house, when I came back. One page had a rough sketch of my floor plan. We didn't touch anything. We left and went straight to the police. This time, they listened. An officer came out that evening and took statements. Another went into the woods with a flashlight and evidence bags. They told me they'd increase patrols in the area and suggested I stay somewhere else for a while. No one was ever found. A few weeks later, the emails stopped. The footage stopped. The woods behind the house went quiet again. I moved out at the end of the month. The landlord didn't ask why. I don't know who filmed those videos. I don't know how long they'd been watching before I noticed anything. Sometimes I think about that first clip, about how calm the camera movement was, how familiar the house looked through someone else's eyes. Every now and then, when I'm alone at night, I still feel the urge to close my laptop and check my reflection in the window, just to make sure I'm the only one there.